Welcome back, everybody. I am Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune, joined by Dion Miller of ABC 7 Chicago. We are back after what was a hectic week, both on the Bears front and other fronts. And here we are, back in the same place, talking about the same mediocre NFL team. The Bears are now 5-4. How you feeling, D?
Do you know what? I was like, all right, let me write down some things I want to talk about. I wrote Bears. That's it. Paper. I have nothing else. I have reached my rock bottom with trying to describe what's going. This is who they are, Dan.
Yeah.
This is who they are, and I think that's what has been so alarming in this 3-game losing streak is the reality of that has set in. Now, I think there needs to be some caveat for how decimated that offensive line is.
Sure.
But it was supposed to be a step up with Nick Foles. This is where his experience was going to show us that he can shine no matter who he's behind. And he has looked lost, just as lost as Mitch, if not more, because he can't go anywhere. I mean, I don't know if you saw on Saturday night, but that meme that was going around social media of President-elect Biden like jogging on the stage, they're like Nick Foles scrambling out of the pocket. I mean, that's I couldn't stop laughing because it was so accurate. It's like that's sadly who they have behind center. This is who they are. Now, where they go from here is anybody's guess. I mean, at this point, I don't know. I feel like even Matt Nagy is saying, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what it is here. And look, you bring up a couple good points. The first one being that Nick Foles clearly doesn't have any trust in the pocket. And sometimes he's got a reason not to trust it. Other times it's trustworthy and he's just jumpy because he knows what happens 90% of the time, that there's no space, no time, no room for him to get his brain settled. And so right now, for quarterbacks, that's the hardest thing to trick your brain into to feeling secure when you don't feel secure, right? And that's where this thing has kind of gotten off the rails, why Sunday's loss in Tennessee was so demoralizing, because as you mentioned, look, you're without three week one starters on your offensive line going into that game. You dealt with an entire week of practice that was untraditional. They shut down Hallis Hall last Thursday because of the spike in COVID-19 at Hallis Hall. And so you just had this disjointed week that then resulted in a disjointed performance. And oh, by the way, now you're 5-4 with an offense that is still the exact same problem that it's been all season long. And remember, Dan, we were talking about this a month ago, that this team, even when they were winning those games in dramatic fashion, was headed down the 8-8 road. Remember, we talked about that. Follow the 8-8 road. That's where they're headed right now. And it doesn't seem like they've got any answers to get off that road. I don't know how we continue to say the same things in different ways for another 7 weeks.
I don't either. And my fear is that 8-8 would be somewhat overachieving based on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. I mean, they are just not making any progress. And I was almost angry that the score looked like it was a close game, because we all know it was not. They were outmatched. That Titans defense is not great. And they look like the flipping steel curtain. Like it was ridiculous. And just the fact that they couldn't get anything going. And then garbage time is like that. Who cares about that? That isn't a reflection of what was actually going on during that time. And like on Friday night, I talked to somebody and I was like, I think they'll score 17 points. And I was like, then they're like, wow, really? And I thought, wow, that is an achievement for them. And yet it was so never mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head with the 17 points, but you were so off, right? I mean, that wasn't 17 points. I predicted them to score 9. I didn't think they were going to be able to get in the end zone with that offensive line and with the struggles that we've seen to this point. Look, when it got to 10-0 late in the first half, you were thinking, this thing might be out of reach. At 10-0, you were thinking that. And then they get the ball back, Dion. And this, on my rewatch, was the sequence that just left me just absolutely mystified. You get the ball back with 54 seconds left at the Titans' 48-yard line. And as bad as the first half had been to that point, you've got the ball in plus territory with a chance to at least steal a field goal, maybe squeeze a touchdown out of the end of the half, and get yourself right back in the game. And what do? They have 2 penalties on the offensive line to start the drive. They end the series with a 10-yard out pass to Darnell Mooney on the sideline. His time expires. He didn't even get a Hail Mary off with 54 seconds and the ball on the other side on the Titan side of midfield. It was just another piece of evidence that tells you how lost, how desperate, how disjointed everything is for this entire offense.
They couldn't convert a fourth down that was like literally a dive.
Yeah.
When the head coach says this is little league stuff, they couldn't do it. Like,
Yeah.
what? That's obscene. And it's frustrating. It has to be frustrating for them. And how now I feel like Matt Nagy's job is even tougher to kind of guard against the frustration that he clearly is feeling. You could hear it in Juan Castillo's voice. You could
Yeah.
hear, I mean, I felt like the only one who didn't sound as frustrated that we heard from was Flip. And and everybody else just sounded defeated. They sounded defeated. And how do you guard against that getting into your locker room? I don't know that you can. So I feel like that's going to be really challenging. Now, I hate that Nagy's like, look, if I give up play calling, nobody's going to know. Why? Like, why are you so prideful about it? Like, what does it? It's not working, Matt.
Yeah, I don't get that, Dan. If they do make the decision to hand over the play sheet to someone else, I just don't understand what you gain by protecting that information. First of all, it's going to get out. If you've been around the NFL for 5 minutes, you understand that it's going to get out somewhere. And certainly by game day, you're not going to go through the charade of pretending you're calling plays if you're not calling the plays, right? Like, I mean, if you go to that length, and if that's how lost you are as an organization, then I don't know. That's a whole different discussion and a whole different video we'll have to do. But it is amazing right now that they are just grasping for straws. I mean, it's a year ago that they were going through that 4-game skid, and Matt was telling us that he was going to find the whys. He was going to find the silver linings. Well, I haven't seen a silver lining. I haven't seen any whys. All I see is an offense that continues to be lost. And we were saying this when they were 5-1. It was like, guys, this doesn't look like 5-1. This is a very flimsy 5-1. And it was kind of like, my analogy is that if you were on a zip line tour and all of a sudden you look down and that little carabiner that holds your harness on is broken, and you're going, hey, guys, this is broken. And the tour guide said, don't worry about it. Just appreciate the view. It's like, no, don't appreciate the view because I'm going to be in the bottom of that ravine the next time I jump off this platform here. And that seems to be where they're at.
Oh my gosh, that is a classic reference. I also loved in what you wrote on Sunday when you were like, if you chose to enjoy the weather instead of watch this, you chose wisely. It's like, and that's where I fear is where fans are going to be right now because they can't be there, right? They can't be at the game. And so now it's like they can choose to do whatever. They can choose to ignore as best
They should.
They should. I really feel like they should because I see 3 straight division games and I see this losing streak reaching 6. And and maybe I'm just, Deion Downer, but I really feel like that's where they're at right now. They don't have anything.
They are home underdogs against a 3-5 Vikings team. So just think about that.
Good. Who looked really good.
Yeah, they look like they've gotten their footing back under them a little bit.
Isn't that what's supposed to happen when you don't have a traditional preseason? You're supposed to like gradually get better. How have the Bears done this again?
Because they have no answers on offense. They have no answers in the offensive line. They can't get the play calling right. It's all the same thing over and over again. To your point about, first of all, how great was that weather this weekend? And on Sunday, just to give you a glimpse behind the curtain in this new era where I'm not in road press boxes in 2020 and I'm watching these games from a corner of my living room. And every 45 minutes, somebody in my family would come in the door and be like, wow, it is beautiful outside. You should see how beautiful it is outside. And I'd be like, guys, like I'm sitting here stuck watching this mess of an offensive football game, and the Bears are down 17-0 now. And I'm glad you're enjoying the day because the sun's setting, and I'm going to be stuck here trying to document the latest example of a team that's finding a way to shoot itself in the foot. At least in the past, Deion, when we covered bad football and I was allowed to go on the road, at least I got a good meal on Saturday night out with friends. At least after the game, we'd be able to go commiserate a little bit. This is not that. And so it's just a very joyless experience covering this entire team in this season right now.
Like legitimately, I'm blank. Like I don't know what to say at this point. And now hearing David Montgomery in concussion protocol and that they're already so depleted, and you just don't want more COVID cases to come out because that's going to continue to make these weeks disjointed for them. And that isn't going to help them on the field. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason they were so off was just because, and they're flying and guys are testing positive once they get there. It's
right.
There's a lot on their brains. So I want to like give some sort of grace for that. But at the same time, like, I feel like there isn't much to grasp at right now. And they're making like, I don't know. I like, there's nothing. And I feel like it's worse than I don't know, when you look at a Jets team that's 0-9 or whatever, like it's the expectation is the losing, right? Like you just know they're not built for success in any way, shape, or form. But then when you get to 5-1, and now I feel like 7-9 is
Right.
as a stretch, you're like, wow, really? They would go 2-8 the rest of the way. Like that's not unrealistic, Dan.
I think they'll squeeze a win out here and there, and they'll be able to find their way to at least 8-8. We'll see how it goes the rest of the way. Usually, but you know what? As I was sitting there late in the game Sunday, and they were tacking on these garbage time touchdowns, and I was just sitting there thinking, please do not tell me after the game that you fought till the end. Like,
Yes.
please don't give me that rhetoric again. Please, I said it before the season started. That's just a prerequisite. We stayed in it to the end. That's just a prerequisite for not being terrible, right? It doesn't get you to the levels that the Bears are seeking to get to. So, as I've said 100 times before, I'll go to Michael's. I'll buy you a bunch of ribbons for your great culture, and we'll hand them out, and everyone can be happy. But come on, that was a miserable performance, and tacking on 2 late scores that prove that you have some level of resilience is just empty. It's just empty. It's hollow. It means nothing.
All right, let's find something positive. Who was your player of the game in Tennessee?
So I always try to look at every game, win or loss, on how would we be framing this if the result was opposite, right? If it was the exact same performance, but it was a win. And you look at that and you say, boy, look at what that defense did Sunday afternoon to Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL's leading rusher comes in, 775 yards on the year, and he doesn't even get to 70 against the Bears. And they stopped him. I think he had 21 carries on the day. I know they stopped him for 2 yards or less on 14 of those. And so that is an effort there from that side of the ball, which continues to be consistent. It continues to be reliable. And no, they're not getting the takeaways and the sacks to put them at an elite level. But this defense has kept them in every single football game and given them a chance to be a good team. And the offense has not taken advantage of it at all. And so I just look collectively at that defense and say, good for them for continuing to play at that level.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, you hold Derrick Henry to 60 yards or something like that. That should be praised. And I just feel like they're exhausted and they don't get recognition that they should because the offense is so brutal. They are on the field all the time. Although, I mean, that looking at that box score, it's just like anger. But how did the Bears have the ball for 33 plus minutes? And most of that time they couldn't do anything. It was 3 and out, punt, screw something up, call timeout, penalty. I mean, it was just.
You were trying to take this down a positive path, but they had 23 plays in the third quarter. The Titans had 5, and the Titans outscored them 7-0. And so, updating our stats on the Bears in the third quarter in 2020, they have now run 100 plays in the third quarter. They have scored 1 touchdown. They have 7 points and 7 turnovers in the third quarter. As many turnovers as points in the third quarter. I'm glad we were able to get this back on a positive slant.
It's further proof, Dan, that there really is nothing good.
I mean, it's rough.
That is brutal. That's a fireable offense.
So I'm going to give you 3 names. All right, let's just off the top of my head of guys that I feel encouraged by. Cairo Santos, right, continues to be a reliable kicker. Hasn't missed a kick since week 3. Right, great job. Darnell Mooney, rookie receiver, showing signs. And this is for a team that's lost right now. You try to find who are those pieces that can be difference makers for 5-10 years down the road. Darnell Mooney certainly looks like the real deal at this point. And then, Roquan Smith, I think overall, while the splash plays aren't coming, he looks like the guy that was drafted in the top 10, right? Yeah. And you say, okay, continue this positive arc, continue this development, and you can be a cornerstone of a really good defense long after some of the other guys, get older, the Danny Trevathans, Akeem Hicks of the world, the guys that are in their 30s, you can carry on this tradition beyond that.
So I had the thought yesterday about Allen Robinson because he continues to look like he's being overlooked, right? Like he continues to shine. And I have a feeling at the end of the season, no matter what they offer, he should be like, you know what, peace, I'm out. like, I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to sign up for this because now he's going to have to work through another quarterback and another changes because it's not working. And so if I were him, he could make a ton of money. He could make a ton of money. And I'd be like, deuces, I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly an interesting conversation going forward. I think the Bears obviously have the franchise tag in their back pocket if they want to keep Robinson around. He's on pace again for, 100 catches, 1,250 plus yards and 5 touchdowns. And so you see that he is a top 10 receiver in this league for certain. The question is what does this look like in 2021? Who's the quarterback? Who's the general manager? Who's the head coach? Who's calling the shots? And so at what point do those decisions get made? And how does Robinson factor in? Does he have his say in those decisions, or do they just say, boom, you're sticking around, you're the only reliable guy we have on offense, and we're keeping you here whether you like it or not? And that can get tricky in its own right, because that can test your professionalism to some extent.
I feel like this Bears team is testing my professionalism.
I agree. Your professionalism has been tested here in the recent weeks.
Oh my gosh, Dan, I'm done. I can't do any more. 7 points, 7 turnovers. That's the third quarter reality.
And 42 games into Matt Nagy's tenure. I'm giving you one more updated stat. 19 times in 42 games, they haven't scored a first half touchdown. 6 times they've been shut out, including what we watched on Sunday afternoon. So get ready for Monday night. It's going to be
on
doozy at
ABC
Soldier
7.
Field.
Tune in early for the pregame show where we will put lipstick on what we know will be a pig, and then watch the game.
There it is. Thanks for joining us. We will catch up with you next week, hopefully with slightly brighter news. Either way, catch us next week. See ya.